How we doing, guys? It's a review show. We're starting to get a real rhythm, and I'm enjoying it a lot. Speaking of rhythm, Donnie wanted me to pass the torch over to him for the first 10 minutes. We all kind of had our share. But that means the pressure on you for next week. We got to have some good old Gov magic for next week. But for now, we're going to kick it over to Donnie, who wanted the first 10 minutes. What's going on, Donnie?
Yeah. So, last week, we've seen it a lot in the past couple of years especially, but last week proves that we put way too much on these young quarterbacks so early in their career. Anthony Richardson has come back from 3 injuries in like 1 week. He's now hurt again. He's going on IR. Why is the kid out there? I don't get it. You have Gardner Minshew. You signed him for a reason, traded for him, whatever you want to say. I don't remember. You got him, is the point. Mac Jones, the team is clearly not where it needs to be. He's not the leader he needs to be. Why is he out there so early in his career? I get they made the playoffs year 1. It never made sense. We can go on and on with these situations. Bryce Young, is he really supposed to be out there right now? Even if he is good enough to play, that team has no weapons around him. You're putting him in situations where he's going to get hurt, as he already has. It's so stupid. I'm so sick of this narrative that these top picks, that you have Jordan Love, who sat for 3 years. He came, now last week he didn't look good, but he started a good, year so far after sitting. There's nothing wrong with these young guys sitting. It makes no sense why this is the only position where they're expected day 1 to come in there. I get they make the most money. It doesn't matter to me. I'm so sick of this whole narrative that these young quarterbacks need to start so soon.
Donnie, it's also your narrative, though. If we're being truthful, this has always been your bias. So I'm okay with your take, and I agree with it on some level, but it's always been
especially Anthony Richardson. He's been hurt 3 times in we're in week 5?
He's been hurt all through college. This was something that was just going to happen.
It happened all through college. Maybe you're not the biggest college guy, but I'm saying, like, you've never liked, young quarterback start.
Not their first, no, not week 1. I never liked it.
Well, to be fair,
back it up.
I agree with you on a lot of this. Like, I think that a lot of these young quarterbacks are getting thrown in when they shouldn't be. Like, whether that's through horrible, like, I don't know if that's because the NFL can't evaluate quarterback talent, which honestly I've seen, like, it's maybe they can't. It seems very few and far between if they can. The only thing I would, like, honestly, the only argument I have with your point right now is Jordan Love has looked like absolute garbage this year and doesn't look like looks just as bad as all these rookies.
He looked okay.
He looks pretty shit.
Yesterday he looked pretty bad.
Yeah, the last 2 games he looked really bad, and the first 3 were not great. He has not shown me that he's done anything good either. Now, and again, that's the only thing. The guy who's had the most amount of time to sit behind and learn an offense still doesn't look good. He just might be bad. But, like, that's sort of like the argument for these guys. They want to throw this rookie out there, figure out if he's good. If he's good, we'll figure it out. If he's bad, we will know in like a year or 2, and we won't have to deal with it financially. But if you let him sit that rookie year, that's one of those nowadays, like with the way salary works, you want to get as much out of those first 4 years of a quarterback as possible. So they're going to start him year 1, whether they're ready or not. It would be much better if they sat a year. Then you'd have a much better actual second year to evaluate them with, to determine if you can make a runs year 3 and 4, if you need to pick up a 5th-year option, if you're going to be giving them the deal of deals to be your franchise guy. But, like, no teams are not, especially with the way coaches get fired. Like, there's like only 3 teams in the league that I don't think might fire their coach at the end of the year, depending on how the season goes. Legitimately. There are like 3 teams that I don't think, like, and guess what, Logan? The Lions aren't one of them. They totally tanked the rest of the year. Campbell's done.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like, but it could be something like that. But, like, I don't think that happens with Mahomes. I don't think if the Chiefs lose the rest of the year, Andy Reid's out. I don't think if San Fran lost the rest of the year, Mike Shanahan would be out. I do think Staley, Kellen Moore, Belichick, Hackett, oh God, I can't remember his name from Philly.
Sirianni.
Yeah. Okay. Even I think if Philly straight up lost the rest of their games, you're getting rid of the coach. Because those things are good. You're going to change something if it goes that bad. But that's what I mean. There's legitimately like 3 or 4 teams at most that would not change their coach at the end of the year, barring some horrible thing happening.
I got to get
because
everything.
Of that kind of flipping, coaches are going to just play their dudes as much as possible and see if they got it. They're going to now. Hopefully, they would be evaluating guys and only drafting dudes who are NFL ready. If you're going to play them year one, but at the quarterback position, you don't have a choice. You kind of have to take a shot.
I agree, but Evan's about to bite his tongue off. I can see him over here on the screen. So, well, because you got a young quarterback, but he's not a rookie. So I do think like you've seen both shades of this argument. So I do want to hear your opinion, Evan.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody knows about setting up the quarterback to fail, it's me and my fucking team, the Chicago Bears. We've been having a alleged quarterback problem for 25 years without accepting the fact that the ownership just doesn't know how to get the right people out there for an offense with the revolving door coordinators and know-nothing coaches, which you kind of learn that it's a political position after a while. Justin Fields finally in his third season is put in a position to start succeeding, which he has shown over the last 2 games. And I was even telling other Bears fans this, give him a chance in year 3 and then come back to me and talk to me about how Justin Fields allegedly sucks. Because all these Bears fans on Twitter calling for Tyson Bagent to replace Fields are finally shutting the fuck up about their nonsense about how it's all Fields' fault as usual when it's a coaching problem. And how young quarterbacks pertain to other teams in the league varies. Whereas I do like, as much as this pains me to admit it, I do like the way the Packers kept Love behind Aaron Rodgers to let him learn the system for several years. His first 2 seasons.
I think they waited too long.
Hold on, let me finish. Before they let him go out there to try and see what he can do in his third year. Now, we just talked about how he's really struggled over the last several games. I don't know how the hell Jordan Love struggled this much against the Raiders. We'll just chalk it up to one bad game and move on. But yeah, it's basically everything Gov said at this point is get the cheap quarterbacks out there, see how they do. And if they can't succeed when thrown to the wolves in one of the hardest positions to play in the professional football, draft a cheap guy in the next 4 years.
My thing is, to really see what a quarterback has generally, if they're in a good situation, not a good situation, but not a terrible situation where it's just not possible to succeed, takes about 24 games unless you know it. Like Mahomes, you kind of knew it very early on.
Mahomes also had the benefit of sitting behind...
a year.
Yeah, behind Alex Smith, who was a good quarterback, but not a great quarterback, and Andy Reid, probably the best offensive system in football, really.
Yes. But, you even in this very first game, you saw that flash, and it was like a week 17 against Denver. And Denver was very good at the time defensively.
And you can fairly call it a flash.
Yeah, you saw flashes first game. And I get, you can see flashes game 1, but he was in still a very good situation. Like, that's one of the quarterbacks where if he started day 1, he probably would have been fine because he wasn't in an awful situation. There's a lot of guys who aren't going to be in awful situations, but these top-end guys especially, they're just not going to be able to do it most of the time. You saw with Trevor Lawrence his first year. I mean, that was a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, with Urban Meyer
and he
running the team.
I mean, most people were telling you that Urban Meyer were going to be... it was a terrible hire in general. But then he was worse than anyone could have expected.
But that's still hindsight, though, Donnie.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to say that.
I don't think many people like the hire when he was hired anyway.
There's plenty of people
I think
that
we've
did,
been spoiled with Patrick.
There's a lot of people that did.
But because Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns in his sophomore season.
And honestly, that's never going to happen again, probably. In the first year starting, that will probably never happen again. And he's different. Patrick Mahomes is just one of those guys where he's himself, and it's hard to put him in this conversation. But he even had to sit a year.
You can, though. I think it's so bullshit not to put him in the conversation just because it doesn't fit with what you're trying to say, though, Donnie. Because he might be the outlier, but that's how you find...
He's the outlier who also sat the year. Is my point, though.
Exactly.
He helps my argument, and I still don't want him in the argument because of how good he is.
he didn't really sit like he kind of did, but he I don't know. Like all I'm saying is we can pick and choose, but isn't it to tie it back to like our review show and how we do things in our version of football and like building lineups and perceptions and realities? I could argue that last week's lineup was just as good as this week, or maybe like my week 3 lineup and 2006, the process would have been better in 2023. Like we could pick and choose once history is already written. It's easy to say, hey, I was right here, I was wrong here. I don't know. And I think that's it, though. I think if we had a system or a process that worked for selecting quarterbacks, we wouldn't see the fail rate at the rate that it is in the NFL draft if there was a fail-proof system. The truth is there isn't.
I mean, there's never going to be. But my point is, the last time you saw a quarterback step in day one, early in the draft, and completely change the atmosphere of a team was probably Andrew Luck.
No, Lamar Jackson.
Lamar was picked 32.
He stepped in and he changed the offense.
He didn't start immediately either. He was behind Flacco for like half the year.
Peyton Manning also got thrown to the Wolves back in 1998.
But that's what I'm saying. But I'm not nitpicking. I'm saying it from a theory standpoint of it's easy to say like Wendell Robinson, for example, last week. People said like so many people were like, oh, he's not worth it. You're gonna ruin a lineup putting a 3K guy in there because he has no ceiling. Like his upside isn't 25 points. The flip side was he's 3K. He allows you to get Justin Jefferson. He allows you to get Chase. He allows you the safety. So in reality, I just think it matters with the team you put around him and like the philosophy you have. Like Lamar Jackson worked, I feel like, because they built a running system around their quarterback. He could have started day one. And then he could have sat behind Joe Flacco for a year or even 3 years and would have been the same player. So,
but what I know it's hindsight, it doesn't look great, but at the time when it was happening, Houston really did it perfectly with their Deshaun Watson situation. They were a borderline playoff team. They traded up. They got their guy. And Watson looked really good with Houston when he was there.
Yeah, and they kept him during his rookie deal and tried to build while he was cheap. And then they decided to move on from him when he needed his money. Like
they decided to move on because of his legal situation.
True.
That's when.
But okay, so yes, but that is basically like, how do I put this? His legal situation is literally the only reason that you wouldn't want him.
Correct.
And so to pay, like, I agree. Like, that's the reason you had to trade him. You weren't going to pay him. Whether it was, like, sometimes it's talent. Like, I think, like, with Lamar, I think the reason he had a lot of problems is because most of the people in the league realized you can't do much more with Lamar than what he already is. He's very one-dimensional.
This year.
Bullshit.
He looks
awful. He looks awful. That Baltimore team does not look good outside of that. Like, that's some bullshit right there. Baltimore, I am attacking Baltimore all year. They have not.
You've attacked Baltimore for the past 2 years.
I mean, their passing game does not look good. And I know they've had one game where they didn't have Bateman and Beckham. But, like, they're relying on Zay. Andrews is not separating. The offense, the run game does not look
Bateman drops balls.
Yeah, like the run game is not stupid dominant like it should be.
But Lamar looks good enough as a passer where you should be able to win.
Lamar looks like Lamar, which means he's limited and has a ceiling that will not get you anywhere in the playoffs. I've always said Lamar might win 15 games one year in the NFL. And then he'll be like the Cowboys and lose in the wild card round.
Look,
well, if you're in the wild card and after winning 15 games, it's really.
Yeah, it'll be something like that, maybe. Like, or maybe they lose in the first divisional round. But like that'll be them. That will be Baltimore, as long as they have Lamar.
And even with Lamar Jackson, at least he came in his rookie season after the bye week and at least showed, yes, he can be a future rushing quarterback for this team. And it looks like he's just sort of stayed the same with Baltimore not building pieces around him to make him a better passer. I mean, Zay Flowers is a good direction. Mark Andrews is good, but that's really about it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of teams that don't have more than like one or two good receiving options. It's the quarterback.
Zay Jones is not like a great receiving option.
Zay Flowers
Zay
is
Flowers,
actually,
sorry.
Like yes, he's a rookie. So like maybe, and he's maybe not like this Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase rookie. I'll give you that. Yeah. He still looks very, very good for a rookie. Like very good.
Yeah.
Like they got a stud wide receiver for the future. They've had a top 3 to top 5 tight end for the last few years. They've had weapons, and they've had an offense that should make passing easier because people are going to load for the run. He still can't hit downfield throws consistency. He still can't be the guy to throw it 35, 40 times to consistently get an offense moving. When he gets into the playoffs, people are going to make him do that, and he's not going to be able to. Even not now. Like, that's what Pittsburgh did this last week. They're like, okay, no one's running on us. What are you going to do? And they lose to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's always a tough team, though. They're always going to play tough.
But that's what I mean. So Baltimore, with all this talent and this great quarterback, when they get into it with a tough team that's not very good, they can lose that game no matter what. That's not a playoff team. That's not a championship.
I chalk that up to a divisional game going weird.
I could see that, but like again, the Steelers do that to everyone. That's not really a divisional. And even then, you play the Steelers all the time. You know they're going to do this, and you still got punked out by them doing it.
Yep.
Well, it really hurts when Bateman drops a touchdown in the red zone and then they kick a field goal.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe it's all the talent around him. But at some point, it's not all the talent around him. It's him.
No, he has enough where he should be a playoff team this year. If they don't make the playoffs, then you're looking, is it really the answer? And it's too late because you already paid him.
Let me circle back to the process kind of analogy here, because I think it's really the best way to put a bow on it, because like we have all admitted that we all make great points, but one of the worst things about debate television is two people make a great point, and then you still feel like one has to win, one has to lose. I think we can admit there are just different ways to attack this game, whether that's with a rushing quarterback, whether that's with a young quarterback, whether that's with, hey, I'm going to develop a quarterback because I got a good coach that can do that. That's really what we are arguing here. It's like if Jordan Love had sat 3 years behind Andy Reid's offense, maybe he looks a lot better. Or maybe Trey Lance is always just going to be terrible. And we thought because he was going to a good 49ers offensive scheme that he would have shown more. Or maybe it wasn't a good fit.
Listen, I've seen a lot of Trey Lance, like film-wise. He just doesn't get it at the NFL level.
Don't do that, though, Donnie. Don't do that. Because here's the thing. Is people will make one declarative statement, like Evan was pointing out. They'll watch like 3 games of Justin Fields and be like, oh, Justin Fields is terrible this season. Like, you don't want to fall in that basket. To tie it back,
he's 23 years old. He can get better. 23, right? 24? 23 or 24.
That's all I'm saying.
But right now, it's not clicking for him.
Right.
Trey Lance is kind of a terrible example, though, because he's been hurt so much, and he's only played, 10 NFL games? 8 NFL games.
And he didn't play much. He played like nothing in college.
We haven't brought up an injury, defiant quarterback with that kind of conversation. That's why I brought him up. All I'm saying is there's a lot of components going into if a quarterback is good or not. Gov, because I would say it's a lot like building a cash game in a GPP lineup in DraftKings. Like just because you open up the DK app or you start building a lineup on the website, you've got to know what contest you're entering. And like you can't just say like, oh, Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback this week. It's like, no, it has to make sense. And so like I feel like Donnie's right sometimes. Other times, you have a generational player and you got to play him right away.
Yeah, like a Joe Burrow.
Well, But even Joe Burrow faced the consequences and got hurt.
Of a terrible offensive line, yeah.
I was about to say, yeah, but it's not like Richardson, who you're running, and he's been injured before, and now he's injured again because you're running him so much. Burrow, that's kind of a ACL knee injury that sort of happened. Yes, he had a bad offensive line because he was a number 1 overall pick and got drafted by a bad team. That's what happens in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just like Peyton Manning on the Colts with
exactly.
all those interceptions.
Or David Carr when it's the first time with the Texans.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was a horrible team.
Exactly.
Hey, that's Super Bowl champ, David Carr, to you.
Eventually.
This will be my last.
No, he did. He won it with the Giants.
I guess. But this will be my last. Well, now we're done with the cars. That kind of this is my last point, and then we can talk about whatever after this. But no, what was it? Oh yeah, I was saying with Anthony Richardson. So like, that's a situation where you could even take all the college injuries out of there, or even the fact he's a rushing quarterback, because you could say, like, well, that's his skill set. That's the weapons he brings to the table. So of course he's going to utilize them, and injuries has to be part of it. My problem with the Colts thing, it's not his injuries prior. It's not even that he's a rushing quarterback. He's played, 6 games in his career and been hurt in 3 of them? Like
5 games.
So it's even worse.
He's missed half the time he should have been playing. Let's just say.
Right. And so, like, when your ownership puts you out after injuries, like 2 concussions pretty much back-to-back weeks, and he's playing in week 3, that's an ownership problem. Like, so when you're working for bad organizations, bad results follow. That's all.
No, and they have a formidable backup. Like, Minshew has proved he can win games in the NFL. That's what kills me about the Colts one.
Bad organizations get bad results.
I know, but Anthony Richardson one really just irks me so bad. They're setting him up for failure every time they put him out there.
Just like Andrew Luck, right?
Just exactly. You'd think you'd learn your lesson. They refuse to pay their best player when they have a young rookie quarterback who completely fits the skill set of them as well.
I have a fun question to tie back to this weekend, and we can start to review DFS lineups. Gov, do you feel like, so when you go back and look at lineups, right, and you're watching content or you see somebody's lineup and they didn't do as well as they thought, right? Do you feel like DFS players do that too? Do you feel like one position gets blamed over the other? Like, where people were like, well, if I would have just played this quarterback, or because that's a theory that I don't never seen discussed. Is there like one position that you expect more than any other when it comes to DraftKings?
No, not really. Like, I'm reviewing my process to see if, like, where the lineups I built, like, even looking now at our stuff, like, I'm checking ownership after it comes in. And, like, I see one of our lineups actually came in very, very chalky, surprisingly.
It did. But I kind of want to stay in this for just a second. And so, like, we know that NFL values quarterbacks so much, right? And then we value quarterbacks because nobody can select them when we do our pillar lineups. No one selects one until our second pick, to be fair to everyone else. Or like, but when we look at are we just looking at snowflakes? Are we like, I'm saying the casual? I'm not saying me or you, because that's what I always try to do. It's like, I've been a seasoned DFS player for a while, so I've reviewed my process enough times. So it's like, could I glean a different perspective, or can I take something that maybe somebody's seeing that I'm not seeing? Do you think we don't take enough ownership of our lineups? Like, what do you think it is?
I mean, I feel like I take ownership of my lineups. That would be a personal thing for everyone. Like, you doing your own review process, like how much. Yeah, like how would I put this?
I have a good way to put it.
Go. Let's see if it fits what I'm trying to think. I'm trying to get
how Nelson redacted. I can look back on and say that's an awful play.
Well,
I mean, to be fair, no, like, you look back on it and the reasoning behind the play was sound, but he's also an untalented person. It's like, okay, I had a heated discussion last night. where I got in a yelling fight with people in my Discord about this, but like,
Yeah.
so like last week, if you
Yeah.
use the block of the Miami players, specifically playing both running backs, it worked out. And it had a good process behind it from the salary block of playing it. So like, there's no problem. You look back on it, the review, forget the results. The process was good. The process and lineup building blocks, everything like that was sound. And then you did get good results from your players, and what you expected to happen or what you expected could happen happened. Okay. You can then use your lineups and process, extrapolate that, move it forward to the next week. But that is taking the process and moving it forward to the next week. And a lot of people are going to do like what got me upset in the Discord last night, which was basically like just saying if it worked once, it's going to work again exactly the same when it's not. So like in the case of Miami backfield, we knew about the A-chain kind of dinging up his knee after the game or something.
Yep.
So like that's where the discussion came in, and it wasn't really a discussion. He pointed out how the block worked in his lineups of playing both Miami running backs, or even playing the whole Miami team with Tyreek and Tua with both running backs, and how that block worked out. And then he's trying to say, oh, it's going to work out just the same if you take out A-Chain and now you're playing Ahmed and Mostert, or let's say Jeff Wilson and Mostert. No, it's not. No, it's not. I know the salary's different. It's not 2 6K guys where you know one's going to probably go for 30 and the other one's probably going for 15, or maybe they both go for 30. But if you get both and get 45, it works. No, this is one where you could legitimately just get 20 out of those two. Like, just because it's Miami doesn't mean Salvin Ahmed is Devon Achane.
Well, their skill sets are totally different.
Sorry, it's the talent of the player. Like, the idea of the block when you're building the lineup is a good idea, but there is a ceiling aspect to that block. Like, now you're not thinking about it as a player, you're thinking about it as a block of salary, which could be 2 or 3 players at once. That's sort of what we're doing when we're trying to find a good stack. It's like a quarterback, wide receiver, and then maybe a second wide receiver or a bring back. How much salary does that take up? Do we think it can actually hit a ceiling? Boom. Now we've taken up a third of our lineup and we're happy with it.
Perfect.
That's what doing this block is doing, but that block is not the same when you're using Salvon Ahmed. The ceiling and talent is lower, and so you have to adjust for that. And he was not. He was basically saying it's going to do the same thing. And that's just wrong. I'm sorry. Like,
you do bring up a good point though, Gov, with I'll let you finish your point though. Sorry.
No, that's basically my point. That's basically the point is like the talent of the player does come into account, and our biases may have to do that. And I'll even say this. You can play that block this week of Mostert and whatever other secondary Miami running back you think does. And it can go off for 35, 40 points. And I'm still going to tell you it's bad process because there's no projectable ceiling for that block. And you lucked out so hard to get a ceiling game out of that block. That's what I will say right now. You can do it and it can pay off, and it's still bad process. And that's what this review is about. It's like you have to have the perspective to go into your lineups and be like, I did this before results. It looked good, and these would have been the lineups built, and this is fine. After the results, you didn't get as high as you did, but the process looked good. As opposed to you can have good results, the process is bad. Like, you have to have the perspective to look at your stuff and do that. And we can go through these 3 lineups here in a minute and like talk that. Because like we have one lineup that like the first one is like stupidly low owned, but we also know that was our lineup where it's like, can we build something with just all under cheap bucks?
Before we do that, can I at least get in a word?
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a good because I think these are all multiple good points brought up about Logan's original question here is about do people take responsibility for their lineups, and hanging out in enough fantasy football communities, none of which I will name, I will say no. I don't think a lot of people do take responsibility for their lineups, and also I'll get to the faulty logic part in a moment that Gov brought up, but when you see how many people ask frequently a lot of dis or dat questions like rice or flowers for this week, a lot of people want other people to make the decisions for them, which is a really weird fantasy football phenomenon that I've never seen before in anything else in life, where they want to be told what to do to possibly put the blame on someone else so that they don't have to feel bad about starting the wrong guys. And then they'll go, oh, I'll never listen to so-and-so ever again. And those who start to feel that they get a sense for what they should start, or who they should start, or hey, plug these guys in because they're in a role that is going to get X amount of points. Well, no, that's just plain ignorance because you're not paying attention to the skill set and the talent of somebody like a Salvan Ahmed versus a Raheem Mostert. They don't bring the same skills to the table. That would be like saying, if, heaven forbid, if something happened to Cole Kmet, oh yeah, just put in Robert Tonyan will take all the volume and provide the exact same points that Cole Kmet usually puts up. But Tonyan doesn't have the same skill set as Kmet. That's not going to be a good guarantee. And Rob F, thank you 100%. We're glad you agree with us.
Yep, hustle 100. Yep.
Yeah, what's up, Hustle? How you doing, man? And that's it. You have to be able to adjust to news, but then tell yourself almost, hey, you know what? I knew the news. I made the best decision. It would almost be like this. You brought up the tight end, Evan. I'm going to bring up a more drastic point. We brought this up before the show even, and I promise you, I heard this theory because I heard it in one of those Discord channels you spoke about, where people, as soon as something happens, they're like, well, as long as I cheerlead for what happened and I say it with enough conviction, maybe I can convince somebody that I actually believed it. And maybe, Gov, this is just like they lost money in DFS, so they have to do it. I don't think everyone who does this is bad, but there was an argument saying, see, Wendell Robinson was a good play at 3K because he got more points than Justin Jefferson this week. And while you guys paying,
that's not the process. That's not it. No.
Exactly. And full transparency, I think Evan would be okay with me sharing this. He was like, man, every week we talk about the process. Doesn't it just get monotonous at some point? And maybe you're right. That's why I try to bring a different energy to these review shows. And even though we're talking about the same idea of process, it can change very quickly, Evan, from week to week. And I think you'll learn that. Even this news, James Conner going on the IR,
Yeah.
And now
that's a great player. Actually, there's no way whoever's taking over the running back room is going to reach the level that James Conner could reach. Just talent-wise, it won't be the same.
Or at least it's not projectable. Someone has to prove us wrong that they can reach that ceiling that James Conner has. I'm not saying Keontae Ingram couldn't.
No, it's not even
but
him.
He has to show it.
No, they did not use Ingram in that game. It was the rookie.
I know, it was a different guy. I was I forget the name.
Demoncado.
Yeah. And maybe he is pretty good, but he has to prove it. Now, that's where in DFS you could get an edge. If you're using your process right, maybe your process says, I can overweight this guy when no one wants to play him when he's low owned because no one thinks he has that ceiling.
Right.
Do you think he's not going to be played high? I figured he would be played high. That's where
against the Rams, I'm not so sure.
Gov, he scored a touchdown and played the whole second half.
Here's the thing.
I know. I his volume wise, he may project quite well, and he might end up being a cash game running back. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of cheap guys who might end up being that this week, especially if Chicago's out their guys. You could see Foreman as a cash game running back.
Yeah. Foreman's he's shown that he can smash.
Right, but that's why he would become a cash game. He's got the track record to prove that you could project him for a ceiling at least a certain percentage of the time, as long as he's getting certain volume, and you can project him for that volume in this Chicago offense that you've seen will use their running back so much through 5 weeks. So the math will tell you that Foreman has that kind of potential. The math's not going to tell you anything on this guy in Arizona. So you could take a shot on him if you wanted, but you are taking a straight up risk at that point. You're risking on talent. That's the place where you can probably take it. I will take a risk that someone is talented enough to break out. That's a risk I am willing to take on some.
Yeah, and can I add something too about the Cardinals' backfield too? With no James Conner, one can make the argument that Amari DeMercado could be a cheap value play, considering that he's probably going to be taking the majority of the carries when they would do run plays. But it's also worth noting that the Cardinals signed Tony Jones. They claimed him off of waivers after the Saints got rid of him. And Corey Clement does come off of the practice squad if they need to bring in a third running back. So I want no part of these backs in any format whatsoever, even if I need a cheap DFS play.
I feel the same way. If I'm going cheap play, I'm going a guy who's going to get at least a good amount of volume, and I know it with Minshew, personally. But that's just me.
Well, I mean, I played O'Connell a couple of weeks ago with that same premise that they can be bad, but when you got a cheap guy that touches the ball all the time, that's different.
But I think his price will be different because he's going to start this week, definitely.
I mean, yeah, he'll be higher. Well, the same premise exists though. It's like when they're cheaper than they should be, and you project them to touch the ball, they're a good play whether you like them or not. If you're looking at just the numbers,
Right, they're a good play even if they don't produce, just because everything says they have all the ability to.
right?
Like, that's really what we're chasing here. Like, we want to fill in with the most ability and ability to play and ability to hit a ceiling. And we were trying to fill lineups out the best way possible that can reach all of that to hit the tops of a tournament.
I mean,
yeah.
And while we're doing it, we're also playing the ownership game.
Right.
I'm just curious though. How much do we think a guy like Ritter jumps this week from your experience with DFS?
I mean, I've already looked at pricing, so like
I haven't. Like, I'm thinking 54, which I would never touch him at that.
Last week.
No, really?
Let's say he didn't move a fucking dollar.
I mean, I think that's right. I think they, a lot of people are probably going to grab him this week, and it's going to be a huge mistake.
Yeah, 5K is rare.
I would rather have Bryce Young, who lost, but I thought played better.
Listen, as somebody who played Bryce Young last week, I'm so happy I did because it worked so well. It just was a bad week.
But
I mean, my first look would probably be Burrow, just because Seattle sucks against wide receivers, and they didn't price him up either.
And they have a rather young secondary too, with Devon Witherspoon just getting used to the NFL. He's probably their only good corner.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're not great against wide receivers.
Who was it that killed him? Did the Niners kill him? There was one team I thought that killed that secondary this year. Like, really killed.
Sure, like the Rams, that was like one of Puka's big games.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Someone in
there might have been someone else. Detroit also. Like, I'm trying to think. Seattle's played Detroit. They played the Rams.
Amon-Ra's like so weird because he just, when he plays, he really plays.
Yeah, he's just great. He is really.
He's gonna get the ridiculous volume every time. I love Amon-Ra.
He's Cooper Kupp-like.
Amon-Ra's my favorite player in the league, I think.
Oh yeah.
That's my bias from my draft projection of him, though.
But he's
100%.
He's quite a good receiver, and he's on a very solid team right now. Like, I hate to say it, but like, think of what it could be if he actually had a really good quarterback with him. Nothing against Jared Goff. Everything against Jared Goff.
Jared Goff is fine. He's fine.
Nothing against Jared Goff.
He made it to the Super Bowl.
There's plenty of things against him, but nothing against him right now.
Jared Goff is a good quarterback, but not a great quarterback.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's a respectable guy.
Goff.
He seems like a good, genuine guy, too.
But think about Amon-Ra with, like, Josh Allen or Mahomes or Herbert.
I don't know if it gets much better, to be honest.
Probably does a little bit. I mean, I guess maybe at this point it's just offense. Could he be schemed better? But, like, that's to be seen.
I think they use him perfectly. Honestly. I don't know. Maybe Logan disagrees with me. He knows more about the Lions than I do.
He is our Lions homer, but like,
is it just me or is Amon-Ra in the perfect situation?
He is, but it's a guy that's going to get a head coaching job, I think, next season. And once he's gone, we're going to find out how good the Lions really are. I give a lot of credit to Johnson.
No, he's done a great job.
It's almost a one-for-one switch because he didn't even. he didn't even install his offense last year. This is the first year that it's been the whole offense. So, I mean, and then we'll see. I mean, he was really excited about Jameson Williams, and he hasn't even, because of the deep threat guy, because he's like, look, you guys give me St. Brown, who's great, but I don't have a deep threat to go with it. They give him Jameson Williams, and then whether that be injury or just bad decision making, we haven't seen it. So we put a speed element in that offense, and it could be a totally different thing. That's part of the thing I think they were hoping with the Seattle Seahawks with DK Metcalf. It's like you have Metcalf, you have your speed element. Let's get JSN and see if we can really open up that middle, and then let Tyler Lockett almost be a tight end, But let's get over to some of these lineups, because we talked about all the players that correlate to lineups, but let's actually look at the ingredients and how we put it together. Because like I said, we talked about all of the right players and the plays, but let's see what we actually did.
Oh yeah. This was our best one. And it makes sense. Looking at it, it wasn't super highly owned, but 139 is kind of high. But this was also a week where the chalk hit. I think the lineup that won the Millie had a 140, 150 total ownership. So it was extremely chalky, chalk attacks kind of week. And you can see some of our best plays are 20 plus, 30 plus % guys.
Yeah, in one of my contests, I had David Montgomery 50% owned.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So pairing him with, and a lot of people tended to pair him with Thielen, which is why Thielen, who I had projected at 11, comes in at 18.
I did have a Thielen this week.
He has been beasting. They're just giving him
ball. But what I find interesting is he's gotten there at all different levels in different ways each week. So does that speak to his versatility and his talent? Or is that a bit of luck box and we're going to expect some regression? Now, I knew I'd say that, and people you're saying it's lucky. Well, I don't know what to make of it, because he's gotten there all different ways. So is it Thielen?
You have to expect some. You have to expect some regression at some point.
Right.
Can we be careful with the word regression? Because when you say that, in general, it can kind of come off as a fear, uncertainty, and doubt type of word to throw out.
Here's right, and people
don't going to come back down at some point, and explain why the regression can happen.
See, and I'll explain it. Positive regression sometimes too.
Yeah. Here's the thing: in DraftKings, we're looking at prices so much. If he gets up to a close to it, let's say 6,800 at receiver. Is he at that right now this week?
I think so.
No, he's right at 6K this week.
6K?
Yeah, at 6K. So he's at 6K. If he gets up to 6,800 and even 6K, that's a huge jump. His regression might be that soon that 30-point game isn't a flame, Which, that's what I mean by regression. He can still be a 20-point per game close to fantasy guy, but that won't be what you need it to be anymore. And DraftKings wise, anyway.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I gave the input. All I mean is to say he's either going to regress or he's going to level. I don't think he can get any better. But
he's playing at his ceiling right now, and it's just been ceiling game after ceiling game for Thielen. So
that's
this is what he was with the Vikings. Before Jefferson got there, this is who he was. Let's be honest.
They were trying to give him that, and they were trying to do that. You're right, but they realized that they needed another guy, and Thielen. I'll admit, I did not think he was going to be this good this year, and I'm a Panthers fan. I thought Thielen was going to be a great.
I thought he was over the hill.
See, I didn't think that. I knew he wasn't over the hill from watching with the Vikings. I just thought he's not a number one guy. And maybe he still isn't. He's just getting number one volume
earlier in his career, I think.
But that's my point, though, Gov, is against the Saints, for example, a couple of weeks ago, he was in the offense pretty consistently, and he was part of that winning philosophy. I'm going to be honest, against the Lions, he was basically their garbage time. We're just going to, Bryce Young was I'm just going to chuck it up and I'm going to go to the guy that I trust. I don't think that they were valuable catches. They were valuable because it was DFS and we got points off of them. But
it was garbage, yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Where when it was winning time, he was actually going to Mingo. So and Evan, you made a good point. You were willing to call us out this week. Is you basically said, hey, we're talking so much process, but we actually putting meaning behind that process. And so, like, that's what we try to do with these review shows. Instead of being like, here's X player, he got 15 points, hooray! Or, this guy got 0, snowflake, boo! It's like, what can we learn from it for next week? Like,
listen, a good thing to think about process is if you're thinking Justin Jefferson, I think he completely failed. Got hurt at the end. Got hurt in the red zone when he was running a route that could have gotten him a touchdown.
Yeah.
And injuries suck. Like, I can't even blame that on him. Like, people get injured.
It was late in the game. We would have expected him to be there at that point, where he needed to be. He smashed almost every week.
Oh, yeah.
He was going to fail eventually. Now, he failed really hard and got hurt in the process. But I don't think we could say it's a bad play to just throw the best receiver in football in there.
Let's say Justin Jefferson didn't get hurt, though. He's had stinker games even last year while healthy.
Yeah.
Like, he'll go 3 catches against the Lions or 3 catches against the Cowboys.
But that's just going to happen.
That just happens, exactly. That doesn't mean he was a bad play.
Exactly. We know that he has that floor outcome in his possibilities. We know it's only going to happen like once or twice a year. Excuse me.
I really hate to keep bringing it up, but it correlates so well on the opposite side. Is we only know there's like one or two times a year where we get a 3K guy like Wendell Robinson that is projected for as much volume as he had, and he actually had a very similar game to Justin Jefferson. And the reason I bring that back up is to point out they actually got injured about the same time and were injured basically for the same duration of time. People don't realize that because the expectation for Wendell Robinson was much lower. And then people want to look at the results of it and say, like, they want to have this windfall reaction of like, Justin Jefferson, damn him, I'm never going to play him. Or, like, oh, well, Wendell was on 3K, so it didn't cost me. It's no, when you played Wendell, we needed 12 points from him, even at his salary. Because, like, look at it this way, Gov. If you get Wendell in there or Wendell, you still have to decide, do I play Chase? Do I play Justin Jefferson? Maybe you shouldn't have played or Cooper Kupp. So maybe the truth of it is you shouldn't have played Wendell. You should have played like another Mingo, for example, right? Then you wouldn't have had even the option of Justin Jefferson. You would have had to go with a Cooper Kupp, and then you smash.
Yeah, or Rashee. Pay $600 more for him. You get 10 more points. You get less ownership. Like,
but that same guy goes in the Discord channels that Evan's talking about. It's like, look, guys, I'm so smart. You guys were the idiots for what? When he could easily made the same decision.
I have a question pertaining to the Wandale Robinson example. So it was no secret on the Saturday show that I was not a fan of playing Wandale Robinson, despite the good price. I don't, and that's primarily because I don't like any of the pieces, the wide receivers in particular, that the Giants have this year, just because they have a wide receiver by committee, kind of like the Chiefs, except way less talented. So my question is, if Wandale fell into the end zone by chance, which is a fluid statistic that you can't count on, where do we draw the line on good play with the price versus the opposite?
With the volume he got, because he did get 5 catches, although only 18 yards is a little like, but like we knew he was a low ADOT guy.
Last year, he was the favorite receiver on the Giants. He was the number 1 guy on the Giants when he was healthy.
So like we were expecting him to get heavy volume. He got decent volume, like 5 catches. I forget exactly how many targets that was. And like he got 7 points, basically. You're right. If he had fallen into the end zone, then everyone would be saying smash play. The process behind playing him actually worked out because he did, like, his 3,000 allowed us to play Kupp, A.J. Brown, both Montgomery and Achane. Like, he did allow us to fit in guys where we weren't playing like in our other lineups. Like, we have Wandale in this one. This is the only one we played Wandale in. And the other ones, we went and played guys like Rashee and that. But that meant playing a Tank and a Nuka instead of a Kupp. and a
Yeah.
Thielen.
Can I be honest about the Rice play? And I love Rice. And like I won money on Rice when nobody knew who he was. So like I should be biased towards Rice, but I'm gonna make the opposite point just to prove that, I truly believe in process. I played him, thought he was a good play, but we did kind of get lucky with that play because he saw that touchdown and the red zone opportunities spiked dramatically when Kelsey got injured.
He was still getting decent red zone work. Like he'd already gotten red zone work and a red zone touchdown this year. So yes, maybe when Kelsey
was hurt,
when Kelsey goes out, maybe that's something to look for. Like if Kelsey's going to go out or be hurt or play hurt,
that was my point. He missed.
Maybe Rashee is the next guy that he is actually looking for.
Yeah.
And that's something to look for moving forward, actually.
With Rashee Rice, it's also worth noting that against the Chicago Bears in Week 3, he had his most snaps, 5 for 7 in catches, but it was only still worth about the same amount of points, 10.9 fantasy points, depending on the league that you're in.
Right. So far, he hasn't had a breakout. Even Week 1, he caught the touchdown, but it was like his only catch of the game was that one touchdown.
Yeah.
And then this one, like 4 for 33 and a touchdown. But like now, like if you're saying there's going to be extra volume and work with Kelsey out, like we could be seeing a 6-catch, 100-yard touchdown game for Rashee coming anytime now.
But my point is that Kelsey played in Week 3 against my Bears, and Rice still did pretty well with 5 catches for on 7 targets.
That's what I was saying. Like even with Kelsey in, he was already getting good volume and end zone and red zone targets.
Yeah.
If you're telling me that, if you're telling me that opens up, it already looks like he was the first person to come in and take that.
That's exactly. So I was trying to make that point. It's he's seeing his volume increase to Evan's point, even with Kelsey in there. But
he's more like the opposite of Wandale. Like Wandale, how do I say it? They're kind of the same, but Kansas City's a much better offense. Because like both him and Wandale are slowly increasing in snaps and they're getting usage, and you can see that they're a top wide receiver for that team. Rashee's already luck boxed or fallen into a couple of touchdowns because Kansas City has fucking Mahomes and the Giants have not Mahomes.
Well, my point was
they have great value, Mahomes.
Hey, great value is a good brand. Let's not besmirch their name right now, okay? Calm down with that.
Should I go down and say they have Piggly Wiggly brand Mahomes?
Johnny, we don't have any sponsorships, man. We don't want to be.
They have El Fundito Mahomes.
They have something Mahomes, all right?
Yeah.
They want to be Mahomes, for sure.
By the way, Gov, I'm so glad you explained the they're the same to me part where you went into context about the teams that they play on, because I see that a lot from a lot of people who say, oh, X and Y player, they're the same to me. And it always drives me nuts because I'm like, no, they're not the same. You got to explain the context.
It's like, no, the context is they seem to be the same. They seem to be getting the same volume. They seem to be young players that are growing into a role. Like everything seems very similar to them.
But,
outside of the fact that Kansas City is going to produce more, and Rashee has, and the Giants are not going to produce more, and Wandale has not produced more. So, you're right.
It does help.
The context helps. That's where it's like I prefer to look at the math, because the math will tell me that those two guys are basically the same play, and I just have to determine which one is the safer one, and the safer one is in tournaments because of the ceiling potential is Rashee. But for someone like Cash, the cheaper guy is probably safer, and that's Wandale. And that's sort of like a difference between Cash and GPPs for building a lineup. It's like that's sort of like what you're looking for. Like you still want a ceiling, and there's still a ceiling on Wandale, but you're playing him for his floor and the extra value you get off of him. Whereas Rashee is the same play in a better ceiling environment for a little more money. And he comes in lower owned because of that.
It's not a little more.
I mean, $600 is not it's not a lot. I can usually change my defense and find $600. Like, let's be fair. Like this lineup that we have him in, you can't because we're playing the Titans. That was basically the cheap defense you could. But like this one that's playing the Lions, that's $3,800. I could have gone down to the Chiefs and then gone up from a Wandale to a Rashee if necessary in a lineup like that. Like, this one had the Chiefs. You could have gone down from, like, this lineup actually could have been better if you went down from the Chiefs to, like, the Saints and then went up to Rashee in that.
Well, that's why I try to come full circle just to show you how professional we are. That's the point I was trying to make with Donnie's original opener when he was mentioning should a quarterback sit or, should you start your quarterback? It's like you also got to know what you're building for and what exactly you need right now and what kind of team you want and have. Both things. And that's kind of like a GPP and a cash build. Like, in a cash build, you're going to be playing people with a cash mindset. Like, it's a 50-50 contest, so they don't need to shoot for as much upside,
Right. I'm just trying to find points per value.
Right.
Really.
So you're
Whereas in a tournament, I am shooting for ceiling.
Right.
Who actually has a chance of giving me a big game.
And
sometimes those guys, like this last week, Monty had a huge chance of giving us a big game, especially with Gibbs and St. Brown out. And he comes in with the ownership to prove that everyone thought that too. But did that make him any less of a bad play? No, he smashed. You just have to realize, like, especially in tournaments, if you're playing that guy, like, yes, he all that does is sort of block off your salary and guarantee you a good point total, but you don't get any different. It doesn't help your ownership. It doesn't help any of the other things you need to look at in your lineup. So in essence, it can make it easier because now it's an 8-person lineup you're trying to build instead of 9, but it also makes it harder because you're sort of forcing yourself to find a more different play. You're forcing yourself to, like, well, if I'm going to play in this lineup, if I'm going to play 2 30% owned guys, I got to find a 1 or 2 sub 5%ers. So Cup it is, and find a cheap tight end no one's playing.
I'll be honest. One of the things that sometimes the best advice is the most simple. And one of the best advice that I got last year, this last week, I mean to say, on a DFS podcast, the guy literally said, okay, when you look at like betting lines, right, and you see the favorites, and when you see a big favorite, of course it's enticing. You want to bet it. You're like, well, the Cinderella story could happen. It's a fun story to root for, right? But then, like, you just have to factor in the obvious in the talented situation sometimes. And his point was, yes, maybe Cooper Kupp isn't 100% yet. When are we going to get Cooper Kupp at 8,500 any more this season? He's like, if Cooper Kupp has a mediocre game, he's 9,000 next week. If he has a really good game, he's about 9,000 next week. He's not going to go down. Like, even if he has a bad game, then they're going to say, well, now he got that game under him. He's still ready to go. Maybe DraftKings dropped him $100. But so if you want to buy in at a price and you feel like, hey, this is the time, then you got to attack it right now.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's a very similar play. This week there was 2 guys who were very similar. Cooper Kupp, who hit his value, you'd say, and Jonathan Taylor, who completely snowflaked. Part of that is not getting as many touches. He was limited.
Yeah, Zach Moss taking every touchdown.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I think he's still snowflake. If Anthony Richardson doesn't get hurt, he probably takes some of those touchdowns. And it's not as big for Zach Moss. Like, that backfield's really going to be hurting me all year.
And Jonathan Taylor, I sneaked in one. I don't regret it because I also put Cooper Kupp in one, and that worked. And it's the same play to me.
Right. And to be fair, you did say you were building that high, and you were building on a talent versus opportunity kind of mindset where it's like you knew both players were talented. You were going to play them before anyone else had saw it because you wanted to be first, right? And so you were right on the Kupp call. You were wrong on the Taylor call. So, like, how do you minimize the risk? You don't play them in the same lineup, or you.
Well, I did. That's exactly what I did.
Exactly.
I had one with the Stafford Puka Kupp stack. I had another one with a Montgomery, who was going to be the chalk, and then a Taylor.
Or even Gov can back me up on this. When I was playing Wandale Robinson, I knew what it was. It was a punt play. But I wasn't getting cute, Evan. I wasn't saying, you know what I want to do now that I got Wandell in there? I want to play Daniel Jones. Well, like at some point, you can build a terrible lineup with value, and you can leave too much money on the table, or you can try to jam in too much expensive guys. So why don't we do some rapid fire? Because I do think we had some interesting. Go ahead, Dan. You have a better idea?
We haven't spread yet.
Oh yeah, let's review these spread picks. Let's review what happens when I pick my homer team and try to be a good guy.
I've bit the bullet on that twice this year too. Don't worry. So our group spread, we had Dolphins minus 12.5. That won. We're on a 2-game win streak after a really bad start. 2-3 on the spread as a group this season. Logan had the Rams plus 4.5, the Chiefs minus 3.5. That is, was that 1-1? I forget the score.
I'm looking up the score. I have a monster. So like the Chiefs was 27-20.
Yeah. So
the Rams was 23-14. Rams lost. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 1-1 for Logan. That puts him at 3-7 on the year. Gov continues strong. I mean, 1-1.
Yeah, I know. Like
you're 7-3, man. With the Panthers plus 9.5, which I don't blame you on that one, even though they got killed, and the Niners minus 3.5. I mean, I was on that too. Loved that pick for you. 7-3 on the year. I believed in Jordan Love for some reason at +2, and I had the Texans at +2.5. That puts me at 4-6 after going 1-1 this week. And Evan had the Bills minus 5.5. So close, Evan.
Yeah.
And the Lions minus 9.5, and putting him at 5-5 for the season.
I do have a fun, interesting kind of tidbit for next week, unless you guys don't want to do it. So Pat Mayo was supposed to have an eliminator pick show this season, and the organization he was teaming up with, the company he was teaming up for this eliminator, kind of threw him under the bus. Like kept saying, "Oh, well, we're going to make it free. It's going to be free prizes. It'll be great for your community." So he kept hyping it up, and they kept delaying it. But it is official. Next week is going to be the start of their eliminator. And the only reason he's doing it is because he wants to give away free prizes to his community. So I'd be willing to do that just for content purposes, where we enter this eliminator starting this week, and then we'll make the pick. And if I do win something, I'll split it with all of you, of course. But we could track it. So like basically what we do now, where we already pick a pick that we like, we can obviously have a little fun with that within an eliminator.
Yeah,
so that's an option.
Yep.
Yeah, I could consider that. I don't like starting those mid-season. Like it just seems like.
I don't either, but if we can build a bankroll, I think some of the pools are kind of silly. But I did the DK free pool for the Jake Paul Dylan Dennis fight. So hey, if I can win $1 to win, I mean, I tried some NHL tonight as well, Govin. I always talk about it, diversifying your portfolio. If you feel like there's an edge, try a niche sport. If COVID taught me anything positive, it's like to try new things, and we had to get really creative with our process and, during that time. So, like, I'm always trying different creative things. Speaking of which, what's the one thing, we'll go round table to close up here. Evan, what's the one thing that you want to take away from this week that you can apply for next week? And then maybe even like, as you've been with us, or like one thing that sticks out that you feel like people focus too much on, anything you want to highlight is like, hey, pay more attention to this, or do this instead. Anything like that?
Come back to me. I don't have one at the top of my head that's anything like that.
Yeah. You can give them a second to think, because we actually have a question, or we have to deal with something.
Do we?
So.
Oh yeah, we do. Okay,
we do have to deal with one tiny little thing. This is going to be our rough week because Kenny Pickett is on bye. Now, I've already built my lineups for the week, so this is where I'm basically going to give you. I'm going to give you guys free reign. Unfortunately for us, Derrick Henry plays in London, so he's not on the main slate. And as I said, Kenny Pickett and George Pickens are on bye. So currently, this is what we have to work with.
And Van Jefferson just got traded, so he probably won't play.
Yes. Well, he may, but that is also true. So here's the thing. I have taken the liberty because you do actually have one other card that is on the main slate. But unfortunately, I had to use it for one of my lineups. It just worked well. I'm sorry, I took Mingo.
You took Mingo.
I ended up pulling a Bryce Young. I ended up pulling a Bryce Young, and there was a rush only like special gated tournament.
I'm only playing with you because I don't know who's bigger fan of Mingo, me or you, and you're the
Right.
homer.
But
Thank you,
since
man.
I'm going to lend you whatever cards I have left to fill out this lineup, I figured me using the one card of yours that would have been useful is fine.
Hey, we did say as long as we can make organizational trades, we were good with it. So,
And like I said, like I looked, if there was a way to use the Henry, I would have, but there's just not enough between us to play that London. And then the other one you have is Cortland Sutton. He plays on Thursday night. Again, there was no way to use that. I don't have I have Kansas City players, but I don't have enough to build a lineup around just our Sutton in that. So this is what we have. We have our Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram stack, and we'll leave Van Jefferson in there for now, but we'll just fill it in with what I have. I really wish I had more to give you. I really wish you could use one of these A-Chains this week. Even if it wasn't a superstar, if I just had A-Chain that I knew could play this week, I would have saved one of my two for you.
Gov, I feel really bad for you. Can we just say really quickly for your personal team?
Yeah, I have multiple A-Chains, and one of them's a really low serial number. That's like really nice.
Not only that, because not enough people cover Rainmakers, so this is a good thing for us to cover on a smaller podcast, even for ourselves, that might help us with viewership. You've had terrible luck when it comes to injuries. You just lost A-Chain, and then you lost Nick Chubb.
Yep. I've lost one. Yeah, I'm especially to running backs. I didn't have my Gibbs last week.
And for people that don't realize, we buy these players, and then the contest is essentially free. So, but you invest in the players, so an injury is very devastating to your portfolio.
Yes, I really need Jeff Wilson to come off IR at this point. Oh God,
I think you're gonna get it.
So, like, you guys feel free. I would say plug in Gibbs and hope he plays, but you could also just play Ford against San Francisco.
I heard Gibbs is going to play. I heard it was a precautionary thing, and
he showed up. He showed up late Friday, so it was like a little tweak in the last practice. They kept him out because it was only a day or two earlier. That I heard the same thing. He should be fine. So if you guys want to put in Gibbs as our running back,
Gibbs would be way safer.
All right, then we have a flex spot. Again, we have Ford. I have Mike Evans that you could use.
You got to go Evans.
Michael Thomas.
I'm going Evans, man.
Yeah,
Evans is so safe.
Now,
I really hate
here's what we'll do. I will get rid of Van Jefferson and put Evans there. So again, it's a flex spot. It can be anything I have. Who's your last guy in? Michael Thomas, Drake London, DJ Shark.
Well, London has looked really
Robert Woods.
I think London has a higher ceiling.
Philly or Detroit defense.
Detroit's defense has looked good recently.
At Tampa Bay.
Who's Philly's defense? Philly. I like Philly's defense against the Jets. I really like that.
That's a sneaky one. Philly's defense at the Jets.
One.
Zach Wilson can fuck that up.
And
Darius Slay.
It doesn't matter. I just get the defensive points. It doesn't matter who it is. Like I can play the guy on IR. I'm still going to get the Detroit defensive points.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, but they didn't want to build a bunch of defensive.
They didn't want to just give like these guys can only get like 3 or 4 points because they'll get whatever sacks or picks they get. It's like that's kind of unfair. So just give them the defensive points like it is on DraftKings.
I really like the Philly defense.
Go one of these.
I'll just keep scrolling just in case, but like that one looks good. Alec Pierce.
I don't like Alec Pierce this week, especially.
Downs is better than him now.
Mayer. You think he's going to be the new tight end number 1 for Vegas? Vegas is
Not
going to show out and use their tight ends against New England?
I'm
I
not
think they will when they go to O'Connell, but not with Jimmy.
Would you consider Jeff Wilson if he were activated and playing?
I would not. I think Philly's.
I would not. I would go London.
I'm fine with Philly defense then. I would say
go
it's Philly
Philly or
defense. I was about to say, I'd say it's Philly defense or Michael Thomas.
Oh, I forgot we had defenses available. I'm okay with the Eagles defense.
But Eagles defense or Michael Thomas for me. But I could see why you would go London. I still don't trust the Atlanta passing volume yet.
They're crazy.
One game of Ritter throwing for 300 is not something I want to chase.
But that Washington secondary is ass.
But
True. Maybe it is something I want to chase. Like again, it's Tuesday, but like I think the consensus is
Van Jefferson will come in and steal the touchdown.
Yeah, they're bringing in. Well, that's the thing. Are they bringing in Van Jefferson for more passing volume? Maybe it is the London thing. But like,
by the way,
we'll see.
Robinson only has 1 touchdown still on the season, and then Kyle Pitts saw 11 targets. So like, I don't know what that offense is. To your point, guys.
No, it's the same thing as the start of the year when we talked about it. What is Atlanta going to do offensively? And we can't tell. And let's be honest, the Robinson touchdown was really weird, and he really had to do something ridiculous to get it, where he caught a one-handed pass behind his back, essentially, and then he had to juke out a defender.
Just going to say this, did not plan this out, did not realize this. Love the fact that we have a Detroit-Tampa mini stack with our stack.
Me and Evan saw it right away.
I saw it, and I just was like, that's why I wasn't playing Detroit.
Didn't even realize it until right now. Although that would be a good reason to play like an Alec Pierce as the last guy to be the bring back to our Jacksonville stack. But
no thanks.
Again, I wonder how much Zach Moss is going for.
Yeah, because he's still going to get a lot of good volume, right?
By the way, we just saw a huge spike in the last couple of minutes. We're up to 5 viewers. If any of you have any last-minute questions, some comments, some feedback, we're early on in the podcast life, so any advice, any kind of engagement, this is definitely a time that you guys can get in and involved. And if you haven't liked the stream, like the podcast, subscribe if this is what you're into, because this is what we're doing every week. We give you at least 2 shows a week, and we might even go to a third one. As you see, we got Rainmakers and best ball contests and all kinds of special events coming up. So please consider that.
All right. I think we're plugging into the Philly defense. Go.
Yep. Lineup being submitted right now.
All right.
For safety purposes, that makes sense.
And of course, I put it in the single entry as always.
Now, I was really excited when you borrowed our when you took one of our players, and then that was the same week that you lost Nick Chubb. So I'm hoping that you get the opposite of that this week, Gov, and Mingo just like blows up, because that young man's been seeing like 7, 8, 9 targets. One of these weeks, he's going to get a couple of touchdowns. I hope it's this week for you and your Rainmakers takes right off. Any last-minute thoughts for the people? Like I said, we've been keeping a pretty good viewer count tonight. So anything you want to give to the people? I know I gave Evan some time to think there.
Yeah, I got one. I think this is pretty appropriate for week 5, especially those of you, even if you're not playing DFS, if you're playing in regular leagues and your record is like 1-4 or 0-5 so far. Depending on the points that you put forward, and even in DFS, I will give my favorite Captain Jean-Luc Picard quote from Star Trek: The Next Generation. It is possible to make no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life, and that applies so hard, especially in a horrible week when you might have played Justin Jefferson or Devon A. Chan or anybody else that got seriously injured, and you have to. Naturally, with our emotions, we're going to feel bad about that because, oh no, our studs got hurt. Now who do I play? And then you go into next week and you're thinking, do I play Jordan Addison over this other wide receiver who's getting hot lately? And it's one of those mindsets that I like to keep for playing any format of fantasy football, to keep going when the times get tough. Because even I'm 2-3 in a redraft league right now. But it's not over just because I'm below 500. And even if that means you might have lost a few bucks in DFS as well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Keep going.
I'm 5-0 and Justin Jefferson got hurt on my team, but at least DJ Moore can carry me.
There you go.
And I have like a metric ton of Jamar Chase in my personal best ball, and that game last week was so nice to help my teams.
I got the opposite opinion, the opposite view of that, Evan, but the same message, and I'll give it to you. It's when people, because people want to make that argument, so I think it's a great way to close the show. They're like, "Oh, so you're saying I shouldn't be happy if a guy gets hurt and I win I win money off of it?" Like the guy who didn't play Justin Jefferson this week benefited from Justin Jefferson getting hurt, right? So is he not supposed to be happy? Here's what it is. I think both things can be true. You can say like, "Oh, I don't like that injuries are part of the NFL." But you can also celebrate when they do benefit you. It's not that you're celebrating the injury. Professional gambler put it this way. He said, you guys are going to think I'm kidding around, but he goes, the best way to put it is this. No one ever hopes for injuries, right? No one ever wants to lose at a deficit. But you are taking a gamble when you put $1 lineup in, or you put, whatever your bankroll is. It could be $50. Once you hit submit, that money's gone. Like you've already gambled it. But he goes, you can hope for dehydration. He goes, that's how I would put it. Like, I don't want that player to do well. Like, if I wanted him to do well, I would have found a way to get him in my lineup, or I would have made a prop better, or I would have thought they would have won the game. If they lose a player, that doesn't mean that I think he's a loser, or that like I want his career to be over, or his family to suffer. But I can reap the benefits of an injury. Like I did last night with A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones is ruled out. The first thing I do is go and fix my lineups. That doesn't mean that I hope Aaron Jones never plays again this season, but I'm reactionary to the news, and like you take the good with the bad. And I think that's a good lesson for life. Donnie, you have anything on that?
Nope.
I mean, I agree, but yeah, nothing extra.
But I really do think that was a beautiful way to put it. Like you cannot hope for injuries, but also be appreciative of dehydration, of them being out of the game at times. Because if you thought there was a super talented team, then you probably would play them more often. And sometimes we get lucky on the flip side, like
we've been very lucky with injuries. Well, Gov hasn't, I guess, but we as a group in our best ball this year for football got very lucky with injuries.
Hey, I'm in a guillotine league where I've lost Big Mike and Nick Chubb. Still in it. Can't take me down.
Well, there is some truth to that, though. You have to build in injury concerns. Like
yes,
especially when you're doing best ball. Like Donnie's right. And I said it to him as well in private conversations before we would go to sleep. And a couple times last week, I said, did we get lucky with our best ball, or did we just really prepare ourselves for good quality backups, like getting A.J. Dillon? Like you can go back to that stream, and I said, like the Ravens running backs get hurt every year. I think taking a shot on Gus Edwards is a good bet.
Yeah, and there's no problem with that. On any, like if you wanted Justice Hill, it probably wasn't a bad bet. He got the touchdown this last week. But like it really is. Like they get hurt all the time. They use different running backs all the time.
Right.
We got Josh Kelly really late, and part of the reason was, I brought up the fact that Eckler's had a lot of workload, and that generally correlates to people, especially running backs, getting hurt.
And it worked out for us already, Donnie. You could argue he already paid off his price in week one when Eckler was playing, because he got like an 80-yard touchdown when Eckler was in. So like you never know when the spike is coming. But in a format, that's kind of your point. It's like, know what you want out of your team. Like to go back to your original point in the beginning. If you are the Chiefs and you have a Super Bowl team and you lose Patrick Mahomes, your backup quarterback needs to be different than if you're a Chicago Bears team rebuilding. Maybe you take a chance on a rookie quarterback, or you put him in a week earlier, or you put him in on a week 17 opportunity. That's going to change, and that's how you have to build DFS lineups too. You don't build them just based on talent. That would be too easy. We have to build it within a salary. Speaking of building, we will be back at it building on Saturday. Please come and join us. It's a bit late, but what I love about that show is we build so much. We do it with different pillars, a different mindset, and we're doing it late so we can react to the news. You're literally getting our last thoughts of the week. we're rolling that literally right into Sunday because sometimes we can't shut up. So it literally is Sunday by the time we end the podcast. And then there you go. You got all the information there. So thanks for joining us tonight. Like and subscribe. We're really growing. We're really appreciative of it. Thanks for joining me, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Keep the faith. Go Bears.